It's one of Australia's most loved and often most controversial art prizes. Judging begins this weekend for the Archibald Prize. But one artist says it's been a long journey to have his work recognised as real art. Luke Cornish is a stencil artist, and his portrait of the controversial Catholic priest Father Bob Maguire has been entered in this year's competition. Amy Bainbridge reports.
My name's Luke Cornish. I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about painting your portrait for the Archibalds.
Luke Cornish is a self-taught stencil artist. This short film called Me, We, directed and produced by Jacob Oberman, charts the process of painting a portrait of Father Bob Maguire.
I always drew as a kid, and it's in the genes. Like, my grandma was an artist, but I just sort of happened upon it and never really looked back.
Luke Cornish has worked as a spray painter and began experimenting with stencil art in his mid-20s.
I started off early days just making single-layered stencils, and I went to 2 layers and 3 layers, and some of the work I'm doing these days is like 70 plus 80 layers, putting like up to 200 hours per piece cutting out. I start with a base coat, like there's like a mid-tone grey, and then work out to the dark ones, and then sort of go back to the light. But it's actually done in 3 sections. So it's like the bottom, the middle, and the forehead, just so you don't have 8 huge big stencils.
Father Bob's portrait has been unloaded along with hundreds of other works ahead of this year's Archibald Prize.
I wanted to be as honest as possible, because he's been done a few times in the past, and he's always been portrayed as this smiley, happy guy. And he's just a cranky old shit. Like, don't get me wrong, he's awesome. He's the most generous, awesome person in the world, but he's a cranky old shit.
The Archibald Prize is judged by the trustees of the Art Gallery of New South Wales and is worth $75,000. The gallery says there's a growing presence of stencil and street art.
What's interesting is we look to the streets and see what's happening, but those artists are now looking to institutions like us as well for a context for their work. Something we have to ask, though, is what happens to street art when it comes into an art gallery? It's not on the streets anymore. It's a different context.
Total fish out of water. But that's all right. It's, you know, the number of amazing paintings I've seen just walking through. Yeah, I do feel a bit like an outsider, but that's all right.
Whether or not the portrait of Father Bob makes the cut, the subject has described the work as magnificent.
Aha! Look at that, comrades.
Why you wouldn't like it?
No. That could be in church at the funeral. What do you think of it?
The finalists of this year's Archibald Prize and the winner of the Packing Room Prize will be announced next Thursday. Amy Bainbridge, Lateline.